Recording has commenced.
Wow.
And Joe, thanks again for getting us organized here. Appreciate it.
Oh, not a problem. Happy to do it.
So, Brianne or Joe, do you want to talk a little bit about how you're getting the word out?
I'll let you go first, Brianne.
All right. So far, we've been putting stuff in newsletters and Facebook. We had I did a presentation a few months ago, so the word is out. We're just, it's already, the kit is already out to the first library, so hopefully they'll have fun and get it back and have the evaluations.
Cool.
So the one that went out, Brianna, is the first, they're the inaugural launching?
Yes. Yeah, it's the first time it's gone out, so I think that was last week it went.
And that's going to stay for how long, Brianne? Do you know?
8 weeks.
8 weeks. Okay.
That's how long all of our other kits go out.
Okay.
So, to make it easier on them, not have to remember another date or another.
Yeah.
And Brianne, what do you know about that library? Have they been receptive to getting kits? Is this the first time they got a kit? What can you tell us about them?
They have had other kits. It's a small library. That's all I know off the top of my head, but it's a good one for it to go out to.
Uh-huh.
And just as a tangent, you've now received the funding from the Air Force for those kits, or you're still negotiating with the Air Force? Where does that project stand?
We have all the kits from the Air Force grant money. We got that. Those are slowly going out as well.
And what's the theme of those?
Any robotics STEM related kits. So we have Cosmos, the Evo Ozobots. We have, sorry, I'm blinking over here. Robot Wars. We even have like board games going out. Cublets, Dash and Dots. Just so many kits.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, that's a wonderful partnership.
Yeah.
And do you remember, Brianne, what was the budget that the Air Force provided? Was it just for the kits, or was it helping pay for distribution of the kits?
It was just for kits. It was actually given to the Grand Forks Air Force Base, who wanted it to be distributed to other libraries, and we had the capacity to do so. So I think it was 19,000, somewhere around there.
And I recall, I think it was Mary had said in like the first call that you guys had done something with the Air Force in the past as well around kits.
Not that I'm aware of, but I think this is our first time with them.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, though.
Too late. We have it recorded.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Have you have
Off the record.
Off the record.
Brianne, do you have any other requests for the kit? I mean, now that this one is out, I'm just curious about demand. Are you seeing demand for the kit?
It's slow right now, but I think if we keep going, it'll pick up. It's just summer right now, and they're all the public libraries are just crazy.
Okay.
So it's David, we had the kit flyer, Kit 1 flyer, that I think all the state libraries received. We're still working, I think Greg is working on that version that will be probably the standard that we'll have once we finally get it into Kathy for the 508 compliance. But for right now, I think, Joe, you've received that, right? And
Yes.
are you using that flyer?
Not as of yet.
Okay.
And
And
I'll get into more
yeah.
in a minute, I guess.
okay. And then-
Brianne, let's confirm you have your flyer from SSI?
Yes.
Super. Okay, Joe, what do you say?
So I finally finished replicating 5 more kits. That
Nice.
ended up being a little more arduous than I anticipated. It was the first hurdle was tracking down the tactile books, but Mark, I think his name was. Anyway, he was
David
great to work
Hurd?
with. Oh,
Was
that's it. Yeah,
David
that's
Hurd?
it, David. Mark,
Yeah.
David. You know, they're very similar.
Yeah, I know.
But he was great to work with, and he even gave me some bonus material, which I passed on to our Talking Book and Braille library. Yeah, and then the simplest of things, just getting the other stuff printed out, and the little cue cards. They're not cue cards, but the
right, the
comparison
flash-
cards.
yeah.
Right.
Getting those printed out,
Yeah.
and cut up, and made all nice and on heavy stock.
Does take
And then-
time, huh?
Yeah, it did take a little more time. And one of the most challenging things was getting fine sand. You guys had to throw that in there, didn't you? I mean, it's like you don't find that at a grocery store.
No.
But fortunately, I do go to the beach, and so our beach over here is pretty fine sand. At least that's what I'm classifying it as. And so the kits are completed, and they are out, all 6 of them. But they went to our partners in the VR and library libraries right now. So, because we're trying to integrate the NASA at My Library with some VR programming as well. That's the idea anyway. And so the kits are at first at least going to be targeting the VR participant libraries as
Mhm.
opposed to a broad announcement. Here you go. You have this at your opportunity. Would you like to participate or like to get your hands on one? And so we haven't gone there yet, and that's one reason why I'm not using the flyer yet, because it's being, like I said, integrated hopefully with the VR programming going on at 6 libraries right now. So, and that is going to expand dramatically here in the near future, in the next couple months, to another 40 libraries. And so we'll have roughly close to 50 libraries doing VR programming. So
Great.
And would you continue to associate our kits with the VR, or
that's what we're trying to do, yes, because the VR has couple of the titles. One is the International Space Station content, which you explore the space station, you learn about space things. And there's another one, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's also another space program. And so the idea is to make one big space astro topic program. And so while kids are waiting to get on the VR, there's other things they can be doing that's all related. And so that's the idea. How it actually pans out at each place, each location, we'll see. But that is the idea. That's what was presented to them. We'll see if they pick it up and run with it. Hopefully they do.
And how will you juggle if you go to like 50 VR libraries, but you have 6 NAML kits? How will you juggle the NAML kits?
Oh, we'll just ship them out like we normally do with all our other circulation kits. We'll just say, okay, you guys get it next for X amount of weeks, and then send it on to the next location. And that's all we'll be doing. And so that's the target right now. But what will probably happen is that here in the next couple months, the actual number of kits for the VR libraries will probably go down to 3, and the other 3 will be made available to libraries who are non-participants of the VR library program. And so
And when do you think that might happen?
Which part?
The 3 nano.
The 3 and 3, the 3 and 3.
Yeah.
Probably not for another couple months at least, because we want to get it a good a run for the money at where they're at right now, and so to see how that goes, and so we can develop. They're kind of our guinea pigs, if you will, and then they'll give us feedback, and we'll say, okay, this is what we recommend doing for your program at your library with VR, and then so those will go out with those, and then the other ones will say, okay, we have this and this where how it's being used in VR program, but you can do this, that kind of thing, if that made sense.
It does, and I'm curious, like the length of time that a library wants the kit or needs the kit. Sometimes I sense that a library might get it and they'll put it in the corner for the first 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, and that is entirely possible, but it's been our experience with these kits, because most of them are on a waiting list, is that when they get them, they utilize them to their full potential while they have them, because they know they won't get another chance. Although that is not to say it doesn't happen. There has been libraries who've gotten the kits, they've had it on, they've been on the waiting list for several months, and they finally get it. They had all kinds of time to plan and so forth, and they say, oh, well, we forgot it was coming, so there is that it does happen. And so you can't avoid those kind of situations. But we're always, the odd thing is that we're always in communication with them too, as well in advance of the kits coming to their location. And so it's something they should consistently have on their radar in weeks in advance of their arrival. So
Great.
So I don't really understand why that happens, but it does happen.
So Joe, you have a pretty set calendar for where they're going for the next few months, but then after that?
No, we don't.
Oh, okay.
Only right now for the next, I'm going to say 8 weeks, they're going to be at their current locations, because the next round of VR locations, if you will, has not been set in stone yet as to, although we have a list right now of the participating libraries who we will be getting systems to, but we have yet to get the systems in our hands. So, and so but once that happens, it'll go out to those probably for the first set will probably go out September, probably October is when we're targeting the next round be ready to go. As far as VR systems, they should be all ready to go in October. That's the idea. But we've already had a couple setbacks with the VR program, so we can only stay fluid as best we can and roll with the punches and adjust.
Yeah.
And it's probably not a fair comparison, but we're able to provide $2,500 and a kit and whatnot. Can you tell us a little bit about the scope of the VR effort?
Scope of the VR effort. Well,
budget for that, and
well, most of it was actually funded by Oculus.
Right.
They supplied. Most of that money actually went to what's called from the University of Washington iSchool. UW high school. Yeah, I think it's University of Washington. I always get a Washington State University. Yeah, it's University UW. That's the local one. Their iSchool Information School. They did their research. The funding was mostly for their research program on the VR, in which to basically identify best practices for bringing VR in an educational platform in the library system, in the library setting. And so that's why for us, when this opportunity with the NAML kits came about, we're like, oh, this is a perfect fit. So we were all over it. So that's where most of the money went. As far as the systems themselves, right now we have 10 systems, 15. So it's been about 15 grand just on the systems we have. And then with another 40 systems, I think half of those are going to be PC, what's called the Rift, which is a PC system. And so there'll be about 20 of those. So that's going to be in the area of 30 to 40 grand, depending on if they upgrade the hardware or not on the PCs. And then on the Goes, which is a new product by Oculus, which is similar to a Gear. If any of you know what a Gear is, that's one where you put the phone in.
Oh yeah.
And it's similar to like your Google Cardboard. You can relate it to that, but the Gear is a little more sophisticated. But the Go is similar to that in that you don't have the phone component. It's all self-contained. The resolution's better, the hardware is better, all that. But you only get one joystick or one handheld controller, I should say. And so it's not as good as the Rift, which is far more robust and far more powerful, and your programming's or your content can be way more sophisticated with the Rift as opposed to the Go. But the Go is $200 compared to how much you have to put into when you get a Rift and a PC that'll support it and so forth. And so it's a lot less expensive. So those are going to be, in the area of $4 grand of what we get in the Goes. And so, but I think all in all, the money support for the for some of the stuff I've had to do, but mostly for the iSchool research, I think it was around 150,000, somewhere in that area. So it's a, I don't know what a large pot of money for you guys is, but that's a big, for me, that's a big, large pot of money.
And our libraries doing an evaluation?
Yes. Oh, that's a big part of it. Yes, that's a very big part of it, especially with the educational research component. They've collected all kinds of data. They've done lots of surveys, a lot of interviews. And they'll be compiling it as far as the results and making recommendations on best practices and just general results on, findings, of course. And they'll be producing white papers and be available for conferences and so forth. But and when all that comes out, I'll of course share with all of you as well, because I'm sure you'd be interested in
we really would. One of the things too that we're grappling with here, Joe and Brianne, is the professional development component. And you all were at the workshop, so you had that in-person experience. But when the new cohort 2 state libraries come into play, we still haven't thought through all of the details for the professional development piece. I don't think we can afford to bring everyone back to, some workshop type of a thing. So we're thinking about other possibilities. But it'd be good to know, from your experience, both of you, what exactly you do for training and PD and things like that would build confidence and so that the library staff, when the program leaves, are still they still retain that knowledge base of how to do programs like that. So do you have any thoughts about PD at this point?
Only from ours, and one of the things we're facing right now is with the VR specifically, is that we suspect that it's a little intimidating to some libraries, and so they kind of don't want to go there. And so one of the things that we're planning and will likely happen is that we'll do a series of training about VR. One aspect we'll probably do a webinar, and then we'll probably do a couple of regional trainings in which we invite people to come in, and we'll take gear with us and do the whole shebang. And the in-person training, I'm going to go back to, I've probably mentioned this before about our LEGO Mindstorms circulation kit that we put out. It was very intimidating, and people wanted nothing to do with it. And so they heard the word programming and coding, mentioned within the context of the Mindstorms, and they said, "Oh no, ain't going there. That's way too much." And so we went out and did an outreach. We did an in-person regional trainings throughout the whole state, and I think we ended up something like 14 trainings total throughout the state. And the outcome of that was like nobody could get enough of the Mindstorms.
Mm.
It's like now
Yeah.
they're one of our most popular items, and people are still wanting them. They want them to come back, and it's like
Yeah.
they've already been circling for 2.5 years now, and so it's that hands-on look. It's not as scary as you think it is.
Mhm.
Type of training really pays off. But one thing we've also found is that as far as being creative for programming, there's a lot of libraries that they come up with their own ideas and stuff that are very frugal in their approach, and so they go down to the dollar store and they can do all kinds of things, and the NAML kit that's gone out, for the most part, it kind of falls right into that category of being frugal and getting a big bang for your buck for programming. And so because I think the most expensive item in there were the books and maybe the binocular or the sunoculars and the UV flashlights, and that's only because there's a little more factory work involved in those as opposed to cranking out beads and getting some sand from the beach. And so as far as the NAML kits, I don't foresee, I may be wrong, I may be proven wrong, but I don't foresee those as being a big hurdle for any of the libraries to just pick them up and use them, plug and play kind of thing, and just rock out with them.
Yeah. Well, that will be a really good test, I think. I think, Sarah, you're trying to design, the concept plan, and which will then be implemented. And we're trying to be pretty basic and not high bar, where you do need to go and do regional trainings. One thing that we're trying to do is we're requesting NASA to give us an augmented budget so that we can go out to various states around the country and prepare them, libraries in those states, for the upcoming summer learning theme of Universe of Stories that many states are going to be promoting. And so, our thought right now is to have a training team go into a particular state, working with the state library to be able to do that training. It certainly can't do 14 of them like you did for the Mindstorms, but at least we can get into one location in the state that could, kind of be a center of gravity, if you will, for the libraries to come and participate if they can. So, I mean, it's a hard challenge, and I think it's very complex, whether you have complicated kits and materials that are intimidating and a high bar to overcome, versus ones that are, a little bit less intimidating and still engaging and all that sort of thing. And, so we haven't solved that issue yet, but we'll see what happens.
Well, I will say that the binder, I kept wanting to say folder, the binder that you guys provided with all the content material to facilitate the programs was very good. With that alone, you just did a really good job on it. Y'all did a good job on it. So
thanks. Well, one thing too is it's a package deal. So I guess in the agenda, I'm not sure if we get into the, I guess we will, into the subject matter groups that NASA has available. But again, we're going to create flyers for all of you at the state library level, but also for public libraries in your state, to be able to go online to request, a Night Sky Network group to come in, or to partner with, or a solar system ambassador. And we're doing another one for space grants. We think that, I'm not sure if that will go down to the individual library level, but we would love the state libraries to have a pretty good relationship with the equivalent, sort of space grant equivalent. And for you in Washington, it's at University of Washington, and I forget where it is, Brianne, in North Dakota, but you do have one.
Yeah, David provided at the end of the agenda the different contact.
Yeah, so there's,
Everybody saw that. Yeah.
we're trying to provide these resources, and I think that's going to be another indicator of success, would be our public libraries in these states availing themselves of these resources.
Well, let's jump into that, because it seems like Rebecca and Kathy are not going to join us. That's the second item on our agenda.
Can I just add one thing before we leave the conversation we had with Joe? Joe, I just want to make sure, I asked about evaluation, but just need to make sure that the Lowe's libraries are going to understand that they're do they understand that there's two different kits, kind of the NASA kit and then the VR kit when they receive
Oh, yes.
that?
Oh,
Okay.
yes. And
So I want to make sure that they both.
I have some communication that I'll be going with them directly, strictly about the NAML and all that.
Okay.
So
Because
that's
there'd be
upcoming.
a different survey they need to do versus
Right,
the one
right.
we do for, yeah, okay.
We would hate to have them send the NAML survey to University of Washington's evaluation team there and say, what is this? Who are these people? And vice versa. I'm sure EDC would be,
Right.
What's happening?
Or if they just did one survey and didn't do both of them. That
Yeah,
would-
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And thank you for that, because that was not necessarily on my radar right off the bat, but it would have came back up because I have probably today or tomorrow was my scheduled, my planned communication with them. So
Great.
Cool.
Great. Okay. Cool.
As Paul mentioned, we are trying to figure out a way to connect with at least 3 NASA-based organizations, the Solar System Ambassadors, the Night Sky Network, and the Space Grant Consortia. They're in all 4 of the states, obviously in 50 states around the country. And so you see in our agenda, our intent here is to get these local experts to share their expertise with library staff and patrons, and also to more obliquely kind of enrich space science experiences in public library programming. Paul and Sarah and I have had a couple phone calls now. You see the individuals associated with each of the organizations. So we're beginning to create a strategy such that we want to get you guys on the phone with them soon to begin to talk about the organizations in your state and how do we kind of operationalize this idea of connecting with all of these volunteers. Paul and I have another phone call planned with this gal, Des Jardines, up in Montana. And soon we'll have an approach to the Space Grant Consortia as well. And so we just wanted to kind of give you a heads up that this is kind of bubbling along. And you can see on our agenda, we're going to have this introductory call with the Solar System Ambassadors and the Night Sky Network coordinators. 1 call, 4 states, 2 programs, to kind of introduce you guys to these networks, to figure out how it is you might engage with these organizations, and also how your public libraries will. Paul mentioned we're working on a flyer, again, to be personalized to your state library agency that you could provide to the public libraries, and then hope that the public libraries, once they are aware of this opportunity, actually make a phone call and find a local volunteer and get them to come to their library. We're still working on selecting a day and a time for that call, but I think we're going to try and pull that off in the next few weeks. Paul, Sarah, you guys have been on all these calls. Anything else on this?
No, I think the idea would be for the, both the Solar System Ambassadors and the Night Sky Network are now, I believe, able to track library connections. And so, I just heard from Kay Ferrari and Heather Doyle that they had recently their 40,000th program. They've been at this now for a number of years, and they're up to 40,000, so that's pretty cool. And it's kind of a big achievement. but the idea would be to have Kay and her team and Vivian White, for the Night Sky Network, help us track on their end library connections into their system. And they did that very nicely for us with the Eclipse, and we hope that with this non-Eclipse part of the program, they can continue to do that. But we would love and encourage and support the state libraries from your perspective to be able to, to push out information. And, maybe you have newsletters and other ways to connect, I'm sure you do, to libraries in your state. And it would be kind of cool, maybe on one of those, say, newsletter thing, you would have like a little short article about a library in your state, benefiting from a partnership, say, with a Solar System Ambassador, for example. I don't know. There's all sorts of little stories that come out of these kinds of relationships. And if you're able to do that at your level and get the flyer out, I think that's a huge benefit to the program. And then it's up to the libraries themselves to make the connections. And I don't think it's a phone call. I think they go online to request, though there could be some phone aspect to it. But it's kind of you put in your zip code and they can tell you pretty quickly who's the closest ambassador or Night Sky Network member, to your organization. And so we make it easy peasy. But I think it does require a bit of work at the state library level too, just to keep that in front of people.
And you can see in the agenda, we learned from the Solar System Ambassador Night Sky Network that they have this history of working with public libraries. They offer star parties and space events, making presentations. So they're no strangers. The good news is they're no strangers to public libraries.
Not at all.
Yeah, we've got a good flyer that I think is fairly straightforward, that I think will be useful to you guys, and I think just kind of disseminating that out. In every club's a little bit different on how they work. I think you experienced the Denver Astronomical Society at the February workshop. They actually have sort of an online form how to contact them. They're very organized. Some other clubs are, fly by the pants things.
Not so organized.
So it's really going to kind of just depend on, what that club is like and how much outreach they do. But I think for the most part, many of them are used to working in the library setting.
Mm-hmm. There's another organization that I was on just last night looking at some of their members, and they have a lot of members. This is the Museum Alliance. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if the state libraries, I didn't happen to see any state libraries there, but this is, I know it says museum in it, but it's all over the map. There's planetariums and many libraries, actually. Some NAML partner libraries are in there, a number of them actually. And so that's another resource where they have mission scientists, for example, giving various webinars on STEM topics related to NASA. And it's out of JPL, and anyone can sign up. It's just one of those news services kinds of things. They post webinar events and other kinds of things. So that might be another resource. We know them very well, and I think they would be, excited about having some state libraries involved. And I don't want to, make it, because you can't make partnerships. But if you feel that that's a resource that would be of interest to you, we can find out more, and I can send you a link to their website, or you can just Google it. It's called Museum Alliance. It's out of JPL, NASA.
Does that cost money, Paul?
No, it's all this stuff is free. NASA doesn't do any. Their VR things too, and they have some good topics, some good areas in VR that they do, and all of that is free as well.
My one question to that is, in your guys' experience, these volunteer organizations doing outreach and all, that's great if they're nearby, but how do they feel about traveling out in the boondocks?
Well, I think it depends again, kind of like this is probably, we'll call it the Sarah caveat, where it all depends. And I think some are used to it.
Is there a story behind this? I want to know.
Well, Sarah lives in Maine, and Maine has some very inaccessible and distant places, so people are kind of used to it there. But I think it really comes down to a individual's interest. And if I think what Kay and what Vivian asked for is, you don't pay the person an honorarium or a speaker's fee, but if it's decent, if they have to travel a fair amount of miles, then you compensate them for some travel costs, type of thing. So I think that's kind of where it's really, there's no
feed them
contract.
A big dinner.
Feed them a nice dinner. And
food always works for me, I tell you.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean, and I just have to, for the Sarah caveat here, there are clubs that don't do any outreach. So either they may come up on the Night Sky Network as a club, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every club is willing to come out. They may just be holding their, monthly meetings. And so, yeah, I think it will take some relationship building and to find the right
Gotcha.
person to come speak
Gotcha.
at the library, come do some hands-on work.
Right.
Brianne, any questions about this?
No. Looks like ours are in Grand Forks, which is quite a ways from a lot of the state, but well, contact them and see what's up.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do, is to start that conversation.
And we also learned that when we spoke with Des and in Montana, the state chair of the Space Grant Program, she acknowledged that you often have the chair or the lead person for the Space Grant Program, and they're often a PhD and they're involved in their research. And then there's the deputy director or the associate director, and she was giving us some advice about who to contact. So you see there as you scroll down this roster of names and addresses. You'll certainly get confirmation of this, but like for North Dakota, there's this guy named James Kassler, but she says, Caitlin, she's much more approachable, and she would be the one that you folks would want to connect with in North Dakota.
Right.
So this is just a first cut at some rosters and contact information, and we will work on this to get more information for you guys to make it a little bit easier for you to connect with them.
Yeah, thank you, David, for that. I mean, thanks for getting all that information.
I'm glad you mentioned scroll down, because I didn't scroll
down.
It's all their stuff.
I didn't see it until I printed it out. Is this still my stuff?
Is this still my? It's just David's.
It's Christmas.
It's
Look.
David's secret.
Oh wait,
messages.
there's more.
There's more.
Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about Kit 2 and where we are with that?
Sure. Yeah. We've been working hard at Kit 2 and kind of pushing up some deadlines to get you more kits. I know it sounds like you guys have a lot of kits already, but we have another one coming to you, and it's looking like the ship date will be the end of August now. Instead of, we were looking at, I think, mid-September, but we were going to focus at the end of August to get it to you. And then we are looking at what we call an unboxing webinar, so maybe on September 11th, and I wanted you guys to maybe look at your calendars and throw that date out there as a possible date to be on an hour-long webinar to open up the new kit and get acquainted with that.
I will not be in town.
Okay. Well, we can choose another date.
Please do, because I don't want to miss it.
No, okay.
It's also called the unveiling, so you have to be
Oh,
there.
that sounds even more prestigious. Voila!
Yeah.
With
So
some
what's,
music too.
So are you available?
Fireworks.
I know that we had first suggested the 13th, and some of the Space Science Institute aren't around then either. So I would probably think either the week before or the week after.
The week after is better for me, unless if
Okay.
it's the week before, it needs to be the Monday and Tuesday of that, because I'm gone from the 5th to the 12th.
Okay.
Sounds like a doodle poll, Sarah, to everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That might be a good idea, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I'm hoping that the time, I think we would like to get it out to you at the end of August, but the idea would be whenever you want to start circulating it. And Sarah, it's right. I think we're still honing in on maybe making 2 versions of this kit, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
That is correct, yeah.
And this kit will also include a small starter telescope, Joe and Brianne. So,
You knew I'd be asking, didn't you?
yeah.
And
It's not
Paul,
Mount Palomar version, but it'll be nice. I think. It should travel well.
just to be clear too, you mentioned 2 versions. You mean 2 copies of the same
I'm
thing.
sorry, 2
Yes.
copies.
Thank
That's
you.
Copies.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does look like, looking at the calendar, probably that week of the 17th looks better, because if you're back on the 12th and the rest of the crew is out on the 13th, then we'll probably shoot for that week of the 17th. But we'll send out a doodle poll
Okay.
and look at a date of that week.
Yeah, I mean, the 18th, for example, for me, not that I have to be a driver of this decision, but 18th is pretty open.
Okay.
Me as well.
This last piece is just kind of an open mic. We constantly want to be capturing your thoughts while they're fresh about lessons learned. And certainly, Joe, you've offered one already, and that was, wow, it was much more complicated to make 5 copies of the first kit than you anticipated.
It is, yeah.
How about other insights? Because as I say, we're going to be approaching a bunch of additional state library agencies, and we want to give them as good a picture as possible about what they should expect. So any other, lessons learned, insights, observations?
Not from me right now, no. I'm sure there'll be a lot to I'll learn a lot here in the next couple of weeks regarding the ones that have went out and when they get there, and
that's going to
my
be
next
exciting.
communication with them. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to reveal a lot, and especially how they implement them with the VR program. So I'm really
Joe,
excited.
remind me how many weeks they stay at those libraries?
Currently, it's going to develop differently down the road.
Okay.
But right now, it's going to be about 8 weeks that they're going to be at their current location.
Okay.
And Brianne, I forgot, what did you say? How long you're anticipating the kits to be out at a single location?
8 weeks.
8 weeks. Oh, okay. So 8 weeks. Interesting. Well, I think we're very flexible with that. I don't think we have any preconceived notions that it has to be 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. 8 weeks sounds that reminds me of our first exhibitions that we developed. They were also 8 weeks long, and then we moved that to 3 months just because people wanted to keep the exhibits longer. Anyway, it's I think all that's good information, right, David, in terms of the next group.
Right.
Down the road, I would say it's going to be far less for us, because we generally try to keep the kit circulating for the same reason you guys expressed earlier, that they might end up sitting idle for a little bit. But under the circumstances with the VR programming, and that one of the stipulations for them to participate in the VR programming is that they average 5 hours a week of VR programs. And so whether it be 20 hours in a month, it doesn't really matter to us. It's just the fact that we don't want the stuff to sit idle. And so when you integrate this in with that, at the VR locations, they're more likely to be used if you have a longer duration. But when you go out to the outside of the VR programming, it'll probably be more like 4 weeks maybe. And the nice thing is that you have several programs within one kit. So as opposed to having to do just one kit, one program, it's not a one-trick pony. So.
Okay, Brianne, I just wanted to find out from you specifically about the flyers. Are you finding that we have, I think, 2 versions? Have we sent both the Night Sky Network and Solar System Ambassador flyers to you?
Yep.
Okay, so you have them both. Okay, and do you feel that they're useful?
Yeah.
You like the format?
I did. Yep.
Okay. Because that's the format we're going to be using unless we hear differently.
No, that looks good.
Okay. Excellent.
I don't know if I've seen the Solar System Ambassador one yet. But,
really? Oh, okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
No.
Oh, you only Night Sky Network. Oh. Well, I guess we just got Solar System approved. So I thought Greg had sent that out. Let me look. Let's see.
Or I might just not be
David,
recognizing
do you know the answer to that question?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know if I do.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one, the Solar System Ambassador. And I thought that Vivian had just recently kind of approved the Night Sky Network one with the sentence change. So.
Yeah, that has been changed.
Yeah.
So that's the final there.
Yeah.
And so what is the? Well,
Oh, while Paul looks, Joe, when we're done, could you just send a link to the recording to Kathy and Rebecca?
Yeah, it'll take a little processing first, but yes, I can do that.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, well.
Because basically what it amounts to is I don't have the YouTube account for here, so I have to give it to another guy, and he puts it on the YouTube, and then we'll have the link.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else from your point, Joe, Brianne? All is good? It's great that the kids are out and being alone. That's what it's
exciting.
All is well here.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. And we will set up another call in a month.
All righty.
All righty. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Ending recording.